Hi, this is meant to be a quick introduction and overview to the UMI Property Management System. The UMI Property Management System is a platform that has been designed to enhance the customer experience between a tenant, a landlord, or portfolio manager or asset manager. This system focuses on the need to provide adequate services reliably, efficiently, at cost based on specific requirements by the tenant or end users. The system has also been designed with a multi-tenancy structure in mind, meaning that data at every point is always segregated. Data sets are secured based on individual company structures or individual structures. Within each multi-tenant, we then have subdivided structures, beginning with a systems administrator, an administrator, and then a user. The systems administrator could be likened to an individual landlord, a large portfolio asset management company or manager, and then underneath that you then have an administrator, which could then be classed as a property manager or maybe a junior portfolio manager of some sort. Underneath that you then have a user, which could be likened as a tenant. As I'll be going into the application in a second, let me further explain the process and experience from the viewpoint of the tenant first of all. If we use a simple example as a water leak in a property, the tenant is able to go onto the software itself, onto the application, by way of text or voice, which should be going live over the next coming days. The tenant is able to speak with a virtual assistant 24/7. The system is able to catalog and capture exactly what the issues are. The tenant is also able to capture pictures and also video. Once this process is complete, the virtual assistant is designed and trained in such a way that it will be able to capture additional information that would enhance the experience, the process more smoothly. And I'll explain a little bit more. So let's assume we have a water leak. The assistant is capable of asking exactly where the water leak is, when it started, what type of leak it is as viewed by the tenant, and ask additional questions to enable the tradesman or woman to be more prepared before they attend on site. Just as a point to note, the data between various tenants or users are also segregated. So take an example whereby you are an individual or an asset manager with a single property, however having multiple tenancies. The data as put on the system by individual tenants are completely segregated between the various tenancies or users. Moving on, once the data is captured and a ticket has been raised, we have two choices. The first choice is a manual process. The virtual agent captures all the information, is able to then pass the information on to an administrator or a systems administrator for approval. Or once approval is received, the virtual agent is then able to pass the information over to a potential tradesman or women. Now, what happens behind the scenes are as follows. Once approval is received, the system automatically does a few things. Just by having a conversation with the tenant, it is able to match the job requirements with the right tradesman or woman on the system. There's no need for human intervention, it'll do that automatically. It also has the capability in terms of finding, based on the urgency of those requirements, the closest and best available service provider to that specific address. So once the tenant logs onto the platform, it knows exactly what the address is. If it's an apartment, if it's a house, whatever it is, it'll pick that up straight away. If it's an office, whatever that may be, it'll pick that up straight away, gather all the information, send it through for approval. Once approval is given, the information is then wired out to a network of service providers for that based on those specific requirements. The system would also handle bookings. So the system would liaise with the tenant and also liaise with the service provider, i.e. the tradesman or woman, to find out when would be the most convenient time. It actually capture details such as is there parking available, best route of entrance. All of these things, all of these data points are gathered using automation by using a virtual assistant. The virtual assistant then provides very detailed information to a select group of trades specialists that meet this requirement. Now, what then happens is that the trade specialist is given the opportunity to provide what we call a draft quote in terms of pricing, and based on all the information collected, bearing in mind the virtual assistant has captured both text, video, and pictures. Based on all the information captured, the trade specialist is then able to give a rough quote, which can then be fired straight back to the administrator or systems administrator for approval. Once that's been received, then the job actually gets assigned to a specific trade specialist. Now, this is all manual. Well, some of this is manual. However, there is the second option, as I mentioned earlier, which is complete automation. The system is designed with specific logic processes in place. I'll give an example. So, based on the urgency, based on the requirements that has been captured onto the system, the virtual assistant has been trained up to a point where it can make those decisions, like I said earlier, to pass these requirements on to the trade specialists or service providers. What we can then do is that we can have the virtual assistant make decisions on behalf of the administrator in terms of assigning and picking the trade specialists. So the assistant can do this using a number of criteria. If it's costing that is a priority, it'll look out for the cheapest quote. If it's time of delivery, time scales, and one or two other key data points, we can actually customize the data points as well. The virtual assistant is able to make decisions based on very specific key points in order to help automation. So there isn't a need for human intervention at this stage. What this does on both sides is that the tenant feels that they've been heard, their issues are being addressed in real time, 24/7. So the system is able to send these job requests out 24/7, is able to update the client by text, by email, and on the app. The asset owner, landlord, administrator that are able to go onto the app and monitor various stages by means of an update in terms of exactly where specific jobs are within the given timeline. And also the users or end tenants are able to do this and would also receive timely updates. The system is also designed in such a way that by putting these processes in place, it mitigates the need for tenants to speak with asset or property owners or managers. The system handles all of that in real time. Now, the other advantage of this system is the level of data that is being captured, the type of data analysis we could run on single stroke large asset portfolios. For example, you're able to geolocate data down to specific regions, specific property types, and try and find commonalities in terms of the types of issues that affect specific types of properties within your holdings. It also helps build up in real time a history to do with specific types of problems that could then be overlaid again over property types. You can further geolocate for specific patterns that could help your decision making. The other thing I'd like to quickly mention is the point of efficiency. So clearly by doing it this way, it's a lot more efficient because the system can go ahead and make multiple decisions on behalf of managers or administrators and execute certain functions once instructed to do so. The other thing I would also want to mention is that from a cost perspective, from a capex perspective, the system is also able to provide detailed data sets such that you're able to see on the specific categories that you could make, custom categories that you could design within the app itself. You could then find specific categories that cost the most to maintain or to run. You could actually pick up patterns. I give you an example. Let's say you've got a terrace property in London, you've got a terrace property in Manchester, similar build, similar age. You could then overlay the experience from one onto the other, such that during your acquisition process or during your maintenance cycle, the system is able to point out specific recommendations that you could then integrate onto the property in Manchester by way of a simple example. In my subsequent videos, I'll be going into more detail in terms of the data analysis and the data science module that has been included onto this platform. So I'm going to start off with the property service manager. So I'm going to tap on the app. This is the login screen. I'll be logging in initially as a systems administrator. Now, if it's your first time logging onto this, you would have received a sign-in code as a new user for which you'd have to click on that and then go through the process just to register yourself. I'll be showing that as well. So I'm going to go on to the login. Right, as soon as you log in, you're greeted by your dashboard. The dashboard lists the total amount of users you have, and this is going to be spread across your entire tenant structure. So if you have multiple administrators, and just to be clear, each administrator's data is also segregated from another administrator. So you could have, let's say you had regional managers, the data sets are completely segregated one from the other. And like I mentioned initially, that also applies to the users. You can see the total number of users, you can see the total number of properties, and total number of active issues. Depending on the number of issues you have, when you log in, you see that listed as current tickets. Right now, this is just a fresh account. I haven't included anything just yet, but would be doing so. So one of the first things I'd like to do perhaps is to add a property onto the list. So I'll click on the manager and I'll click on add property. I'll give the property a name. I'll give it a number. Let's just assume it's a house, it's not an apartment. I'll give it a street name. City. Postcode. Now what's key here is we need to add a photo. It's not required, but it's recommended. Reason being because when the data set gets passed over to the trade specialist, having an idea in terms of what the property looks like also helps to streamline that process. So I'll click on add photos and I'll quickly grab one of these, say add. Right, we've got that there. I'm going to click on add property. There we have it. So we've just added our first property onto the app as a systems administrator. So I can, for example, then click into the property. It shows me the details of the property. If you put in multiple photos, you'd be able to scroll through them. But at least when the trade specialist is going on site, they will have an idea exactly what the building looks like. Might look out for features like the color of the door, might want to look at features like the window and so on and so forth, just so that they could pick the property out first time. It all helps to enhance the process. We could go in and edit the property if we need to get things changed. View history, like I mentioned earlier, once we register an issue on the system, you're then able to go back and view the history of problems attached to a specific asset or property. If we click on report problem, that's where you actually would raise a ticket. So what I'm going to do is raise a ticket as a systems administrator. Right. So within here, I can quickly give a description of exactly what the problem is. I can also suggest a priority level, although the system is able to do that as well behind the scenes. I can suggest a priority level, if it's an emergency, if it's high, medium, or low. I can upload multiple photos that I had already taken, or I have the ability to take a photo, multiple photos of exactly what the issue is. So for this overview, what I'll be doing is uploading photos that I have taken as an example. So I would say I have a water leak. In my house. Okay. And I could say that's high. And what I could do at this point is click on this to then upload a few photos which I've downloaded for this example, and I'll be using this and that one as well. Okay. Right, there we go. So what I'm then going to do is submit this ticket, right? That's literally all I need to do is just, in a few words, say exactly what the problem is. I have a water leak. I think it's a high priority. I've taken some photos, I've uploaded the photos, and I'm just going to go ahead and submit the ticket. So click on submit. What this is doing behind the scenes now is it's starting to look for a trade specialist. It's starting to shortlist them. It's starting to categorize the problem. So straight away, it'll know that it needs a plumber. Okay. And based on my postcode and the current postcode of specific trade specialists on the platform, but then able to start to shortlist the process. Right. So I've just had a response back from Digital Agent. And basically she's saying she'll be happy to assist. Okay. And it's gone ahead to ask me a few questions. Our first question, as we can see here, says, firstly, can you please tell me what time and date will be most convenient for your appointment? Please note, we are available Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, as an example, let's just say I wanted an appointment at 7 a.m. Now, I know they're not open at 7, okay? But let's just see what the system does. The good thing here is that you don't have to be precise. So I just said, hi, I'm available 7 a.m. next week, Monday, right? You don't have to give a specific date. It'll do all of that itself behind the scenes. So we send a message. What it's currently doing is going through the database just to try and do a matchup. And as we can see, it says, thank you for your availability. Unfortunately, we operate from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. Could you please let me know another time? So I'll just go ahead and say, okay, you know what, fine. I'm going to do this 2 p.m. next week, Tuesday. So right now, it's then gone through the database to also find out potential trade specialists that would be available for that time. So what it does behind the scenes is that it actually goes to the diary system and checks for availability. Right, so we now have a second question. So 2 p.m. next week, Tuesday, is noted for the appointment, and that's been booked in. Okay. It's then asking me a second question, which is to do with access to the property and if there's any parking available. I'm just going to keep this short and say I have parking available and there's easy access to the property from Liverpool Road. So it tries to get as much information as possible just to, again, enhance the experience, give the trade specialists as much information as they need in order to deliver the services better. Okay, so final question. Can you please describe where the leak is located? Any details on how severe it is? Again, just trying to capture as much information as possible. Now, everything I'm doing here can also be done over voice, which I'll demonstrate on a separate video in a couple of days. Right, so I'll just say the leak currently in my kitchen. And it's really bad. I'm just trying to keep this as short, basic, just so that you get the idea and simple as possible. Okay, so we then submit that. It then asks one last time, is there any additional information you might want to add? So I could say something along these lines. When the contractor, or I keep it simpler, I just say get the contractor to call me an hour before arrival. Thanks. So I might be busy and I need that hours heads up notification, and that's exactly what I've put there as additional notes. So that's now booked in. You can now see on the dashboard that we have one user, we have one property, and we've logged our first issue. And you can see underneath current tickets, we have our first ticket listed on there. Where we have recent activities, that really is meant to give you a live graph, just describing the amount of tasks, i.e. tickets that are currently open, those that have been completed, and those that have just started. And I'll go into that a little bit more detail later. So what we could actually do is click on the ticket, and it kind of gives you a quick summary in terms of the details of the ticket. If we wanted to speak to the live agent again, so let's say we've not received a call an hour before the due time, we said 2 p.m., it's come to 1 p.m., we've not received a call from the contractor, we could go back into the live agent and ask for the questions, and the agent will be able to pass the message on to the contractor. So I'll just go back quickly. Right. The next bit I'd like to quickly show is the process for managing the tickets. So I could go into a manager and click on view tickets, and this just gives me a quick snapshot in terms of the contents of the ticket. Once a quote is received, all of that information would be displayed on this list. Now what I'll be doing is I'll be going and setting up an administrator's account. On purpose, I have given the responsibility in terms of the management of tickets to the administrator. So I'll quickly set up an administrator's account, after which we'll be able to log in and go through the exact same process quickly. I'll try and speed that process up, and we'll set up a number of users and raise a number of tickets. I'll then be able to show you how the process actually gets managed. Right. So I'm just going to quickly click on users, and I am going to say I want to add a user by code. So I click that. I need to enter the email for the user. Okay. If there is a mobile phone number, you put that in there. What that allows is that the unique code would be sent out by SMS to that administrator, such that they could go back in and log into the account. But for this example, I'll just go ahead and put in a random number in there. I'm sure I had one on my... Right, I'm gonna say this is an administrator. I'll go ahead and set up the account. So we just click on generate code and account. Okay. There we go. That's a text message has just come through with the exact same code. So I'm going to click to log out. You also do have the ability to change between modes. So if you want to go into a dark mode, you can, or if you want to go into light mode, you can. Some people prefer the light mode, some prefer the dark. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to log out and log in with the code. Alright, so we've got the email address. Skip the mobile phone number for now. Could add that in later, which is something I'd like to show. We've entered our password and then registration code. You click next. The password needs to be at least 6 characters. We might actually need a caps in there as well. Let's check. Okay, so the account is set up. One of the things I suggest you do straight away as an administrator is fill in the rest of the details of your account. So we're going to call this account for a lady called Sarah. Sarah Cooper. You need to give her a photo. So you're going to be Sarah Cooper today. Okay. And right, so once we have Sarah's details saved, we can then go back to our dashboard. Now, as the administrator, I am going to be adding a property. So for that, I go into the property manager, and then I click on add properties like we did before, and I'll be giving the property a name quickly. Right, so we've just added the first property as the administrator, and again we can click into that. If there's any history, we could view history in there, but I'll go ahead and create a problem quickly. I'll speed this up just to save time as well. So for this property, I have already stated the problem as being issue with lights upstairs and not coming on. And as you can see from the message, it's already picked up that an electrician is required and is now asking for access to the property. Right, so again, just as we saw from the systems administrator standpoint, we now have one user, one property, and one issue. So if we click into the tickets, again, it just gives a brief overview. If a quote has been sent, we can click on view quote to get additional information on the quote. What I'll do is I'll be going back into the manager, click on view tickets, and again here we're able to see a little bit more because the way this tenant has been designed, it is the administrator that handles administrative processes as required for individual tickets. So currently I did say I had issues with the lights upstairs not coming on. That's registered as a medium priority. Currently the status is awaiting, and I can click on quote. As soon as I've clicked that, it's then gone onto the backend system to assign this quote to specific trade trade service providers, basically. Now, once the quote comes back, I have obviously the ability to reject the quote or accept the quote. So that was one of the features that I wasn't able to show on the systems administrator account. I'll just fast forward a little bit. I've just set up a user account underneath the previous administrator, so I'm just going to log in, and I'll be raising a ticket on this account, but again I'm going to speed up the process. So finally, I do realize that this overview has gone slightly longer than I initially anticipated. So what I'll be doing is creating subsequent videos just to highlight the further features that I mentioned. But quickly, I've just come back into the administrator's account, so not the service, but just the administrator's account. And I am now able to see multiple tickets from, if I go to the users, view my users, from the 3 users. So I created 2 users, and obviously the last one being the administrator. So as an example, I can go into manager and click view tickets. I can see the tickets for the specific issues that have been raised. Again, as the administrator, I can request quotes. So I'll be showing you a little bit of the quoting system and the job distribution system as well, and scheduling process uh, on the property contractor manager, sorry. So as an example, I can quickly click into this ticket. I've got multiple photos describing what the roof leak looks like in the property. So I'm going to end this for here. I'm going to end this here for now because I do realize it's about 40 minutes or so far. I'll be making subsequent videos, uh, just highlighting some of the other features that I mentioned earlier.